You can take the glasses off?
I am just because they're very shiny right now. No, leave your glasses on.
But we both have glasses.
Fine, then we go both glasses. If you don't mind the little bit of flare, because mine are not as what do you call it? Good with the glare.
I would prefer the glasses.
Let's go with the glasses.
Okay, fine. Take the glasses off. We got to do it together. Either we put them on or we take them off.
Leave them on. Leave them on. Let's go for it.
All right. Was that the intro to the podcast, by the way?
It could be.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Snapchat. I'm joined today by a very special guest. And yes, that pun was intended. It's guest gaming. Good to see you, my man. It has been so long since we've had the opportunity to chat, and it's the first time you've been on the podcast. And my man, it's great to see you. You've been a guest that I've been looking forward to having on for the longest time. It's great to finally have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. To say the minimum, I'm honored to be here, and I know we have a lot to talk about. I know this is an incredibly exciting week for Marvel Snap, so the fact that I have the opportunity to chat with you about it and just kind of rip into everything going on this week over the next 7 days of chaos in Marvel Snap, I'm honored to be here, and let's go for it, man. I'm ready.
It's one of those few instances where I feel like I can legitimately once again say it's a great time to be a Marvel Snap player, especially with this week. We have a massive season rollout, which I think is going to be super exciting. We also have a massive event coming, which we're going to touch on momentarily. Like literally one of the biggest events held for Marvel Snap. And we'll just say that you might know a little bit behind the scenes about how maybe that's happening and how it's going, right? So I can't wait to dive into that. But before that, guest, it's the first time you're on the Snapchat podcast. You are one of the hardest working guys behind the scene, legit. And we're going to dive into that today. You guys are going to be blown away with just how much It's Guest Gaming does for the Marvel Snap community. But first, my man, you have to tell me, how did you get started with Marvel Snap in the first place?
I was introduced to it from another creator friend named Default Dan. And I was playing another Disney game at that time, and I wasn't really feeling the vibe. I had been streaming for about 2-ish years at that point. I'm like, I'm looking for something else, and he was like, look, there's this new Marvel game. It's a card game. And I just said, I don't know, to be honest, because I haven't played card games since high school. I was a Yu-Gi-Oh player, but I wasn't a up-to-date like Magic the Gathering player, or it wasn't my scene at first. But I played a lot of digital games, a lot of mobile games for streaming. So I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Started it, and what is it now? 3 years later?
Yeah, basically it's the third anniversary.
Yeah, like it hooked me in. I started the month of global launch, like not day one, but like within that first month, and I've been hooked obviously ever since. And it's become more than a career at this point, and opened up so many doors. And that just handoff of my buddy Britt saying, "Hey, listen, you should try this. We create content. It seems like it's a fun game." And I had no idea that it would just lead down this chaos path of both from streaming to videos to working with Second Dinner, and the list goes on over the last couple of years. But that was literally just my buddy going, "Hey, you should try this." I was like, all right. It wasn't a sponsored thing. It wasn't I was looking for it thing. It just kind of happened.
That's awesome. And actually, I had the opportunity to meet Britt in New York for that first Creators Clash tournament, right? Which is awesome. He's a super cool dude.
Yeah.
Super talented as well. Did a lot of cool stuff with Lorcana as well later on.
Yes.
And what I will say is that, like, that is the thing that Marvel Snap was doing so well, and to this day continues to do. It has such a great first impression. It sells itself so unbelievably well. If you're like, hey, do you even like card games conceptually? You got to try this one. And Marvel Snap sucks people in so effectively. It's the retaining part that we have to work on a little bit over time, right? But I think that they're getting better. I think that they're being very kind of responsive to community feedback, and it's one of those things where, like, that is one of Marvel Snap's superpowers. We talk about all the superpowers for all the heroes in the game, but Snap's superpower is that incredible first impression. It has a great IP, and it sells itself so effectively. So it's awesome to hear that it sold you. And I mean, the rest is basically history as you've kind of come full circle. And now you're one of the key players behind the scenes. And that brings us into our first topic of conversation, which is the Golden Gauntlet. My man, you have to bring us through the history of the Golden Gauntlet, how it became the beast that it is today. And of course, what's happening this weekend. that is going to be one of the most exciting things in Marvel Snap in recent memory.
Yeah, the history of the Golden Gauntlet in a semi-abbreviated form is this process started almost a year ago, nearly to the day. Myself and the tournament organizer and director and co-founder of our company, you may know Gunny T from the community, he was like, hey, listen, I'm looking at doing Marvel Snap tournaments. He was working on Snap Judgments League and wanted to do something, you know, potentially with Second Dinner. I had the pleasure of meeting him at SnapCon a couple of months prior, and we just kind of laid some initial groundwork for doing a community style tournament, because I know you've seen behind the scenes his involvement with the creator events in the past. And it was like, how do we take this to the next level and make it something that can be internationally received in some way, shape, or form? So after months and months of conversations with Second Dinner and watching the conversations change because of what we'll lightly word as January, all of that transformed into us finally getting the go-ahead for the first ever Golden Gauntlet over the summer. And it was just a trial. It was literally, let's see if the community even likes this, because there is a small niche. You know, we've seen the community events. I've been a part of them as well. You know, is this actually something that if we, you know, put it out on just socials, are people going to be interested in participating? And the first one was immediately rapidly received by the community. And that was just with social advertisement. Then we did the same thing and proved it again. And that led to the official, like, we're going to do a 4-part series, international time zones for different, you know, qualifiers. And it just has been an ongoing conversation with several members of the team from Second Dinner on how do we build the event? How do we advertise the event? Getting us in the game, talking about the event is live, putting it on both YouTube and Twitch. And it started with just a, hey, this would be really good to do for the community. And then it evolved into now what is one of the featured items for Marvel Snap over the last couple of months, and something that they're really leaning into to celebrate Marvel Snap with the community. Because it's not about being a, you know, this is the hardest core player of Marvel Snap. No, it's really a showcase of what Marvel Snap actually is and does. And now we have the opportunity to bring the best of the best over the last couple of weeks to our world final this upcoming weekend.
That's amazing. And there's a couple things I want to touch on. First, Gunny T is one of those unsung heroes that often doesn't get the praise that they deserve. I believe they're
100%.
responsible for like the rule book and like all those types of things that kind of go into actually making the tournament run successfully, which is an incredibly insane endeavor. And so definite shout out to them. They're doing incredible work there. And the other thing I want to say as well is I do think that the Golden Gauntlet tournament is incredibly important. I do appreciate the approach as well, that it's not just like a invitational creator thing. This is something that every single person who turns this game on can engage with.
Yes.
And I think that aspirational like content and aspirational opportunities for games is really important. And I thought about this as well when I was kind of thinking about how much I enjoy the Golden Gauntlet. And I was thinking about how, like, when I played Dota, right? I would watch the International, and I was never going to be on the International, but knowing that there was a chance. I'm just joking. I was never going to make a pro Dota 2 team. But the idea is that, like, there was a path for someone to become a pro Dota 2 player, or a pathway to at least competitively be like, you know what? I'm actually really good at this game, and I'm going to see what I can do on a world stage. And I think that's amazing about what you're doing here, because you're allowing anybody from any region to compete and also get a platform to showcase their skills while being professionally casted and professionally produced. Not a lot of games have that. And it was a good chance that Marvel Snap was never going to have this. And you guys made it a reality. And so for that, on behalf of the entire community, we have to say thank you.
No, it's something that I've absolutely loved being a part of, from the what we'll call the grassroots level of, you know, a 16-person small, whatever it is, tournament on a so-and-so channel, to watching it into a league series with, you know, weekend players, and then now letting Second Dinner being involved and saying, here's what else we can do with this. You know, here's how we can scale this to such a level that more and more people want to try it out, and then they see the events and they get more interested, and then what wins one of them? Oh, it's just a standard, discard list that anybody can access like incredibly quickly in this game. Like, it's about accessibility. It's not about who has the shiniest collection. No offense to Ken with Super Tech God. It's all about what can you do with the collection you have. And it's been a one heck of an adventure between Gunny T, Models, who's the technical whiz of everything in the background with all of the bots, the creation of making the event run smoothly, the integration with the Top Deck website, everything that we've done. He's been grinding over the last couple of months. And then Super Tech God, he's there. It's the four of us that make Game On events. And each of us really have put in a lot of work to make sure that everything from administration to organization to everything that you see just feels smooth. So we've put a lot of work in, and I'm glad that the community is really enjoying it.
Yeah, and from my communications with Second Dinner, it seems like they've been remarkably happy with the kind of production and the quality that you guys have been able to do. I know Brady speaks very highly of you guys, and Brady's such an OG, man. What a great guy. He's legitimately doing incredible work at Second Dinner. He's one of the another unsung hero is Brady, 100%. And with that being said, like, we literally have this weekend like the World Championships, essentially. Do you want to kind of fill us in as what's going on, where we can catch it, what you're expecting to see there?
Absolutely. So over the last couple of months, we've had qualifiers, within different regions all across the world where anybody could participate. And anybody who qualified from those is now coming to the World Showcase, the World Championship final. And they're all competing for incredible amounts of prizes. Like, the top prize has 75,000 collector's tokens and 25,000 gold. So they're competing for some major prizes and exclusive, titles and card backs and things that you can only get for not just participating, but also winning and hitting the top 16 for this event. That's taking place this Saturday. It'll be live on Twitch. It'll be live on YouTube. And I have two announcements for you that have not been announced yet in regards to the tournament scene and the Golden Gauntlet. So this is Alex literally has no idea that this is like being said right here. This is first. I got the okay to talk about a couple of things. So first and foremost, the casters have been officially selected. The casters for this event, it's going to be an opening pre-show. So we're doing a 1-hour pre-show as well as the first couple of rounds. That'll be hosted by Not My Dance and a former co-host of this podcast as well, Regis Kilbin is going to be joining us to cast for the very first time. Moving on, it's going to be two more members who have also been on this podcast. It'll be Binks Plays and Super Tech God. They're both going to be casting. And then the top 16 bracket at the very end will be, as we've kept tradition and Second Dinner agrees, KM, Best, and myself are going to cast the final bracket. So we have insane, amazing casters, incredible personalities. I'm very excited to have this lineup going into the world final to showcase, what we've been working towards for the last 3 months now.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. That's a legit incredible caster lineup, man. And it's just another reason to want to tune in, not just for the amazing plays, the decks, and the skill on display, but also for the amount of talent on the in the booth, as they say.
Yeah, in the booth, and it's going to be really cool to see what happens when we put these dynamic duos together and let them just kind of react the entire time and give one heck of a show to the community. So that's announcement number one. Announcement number two for you is the fact that if people have just heard about Golden Gauntlet for the very first time and they're curious about Marvel Snap tournaments, this isn't the last big Marvel Snap tournament. We are happy to announce that there is going to be another exclusive tournament event happening in January. It's going to be called Snowball Showdown, and it's going to be happening as a part of the Marvel Snap Winterverse celebration, which will be in the second week of January. It's going to have new rules, new restrictions, new deck building challenges to make it even further approachable for the community to partake in a Marvel Snap community tournament. So there's more details to come, but just know that the second Saturday in January is going to be a very busy Saturday for Marvel Snap.
That's awesome, man. Absolutely incredible. So once again, guys, you heard it here. Tons of stuff happening with the Golden Gauntlet. You can catch it this Saturday, and you can see those finals, which have been basically literally months in the making, qualifying and everything. Yep. You are seeing, this is the Super Bowl of Marvel Snap, and you guys get to see it this week. Yeah. Guys, excited. We are going to be jumping into our new season. We have so much to talk about. There are so many cards, so much excitement, and some of these cards seem incredibly powerful, like insanely powerful. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just run down what you can expect this season from a launch perspective, and then we'll actually go through each individual card, do our previews and things along those lines. First of all, Season Pass card on the screen, you're going to have Spiderpunk. You have the Super Premium Season Pass in Man Spider. Those will be available on November 4th. On November 4th as well, the third card is going to be Superior Spider-Man. And then from the Series 5 packs, you have Ezekiel Sims coming November 11th. November 18th, you have Spider-Man Noir and the Prowler. The Prowler finally making its appearance in the game on November 25th. I know, it's crazy. So right away, from a Series 5 perspective, you got a lot of bangers. And Series 4, we have Hydro Man coming in the limited time game mode Sanctum Showdown. We have Web Sling on November 4th. So a lot of cards in the start of the season as per usual. Chameleon on November 11th. And finally, Deafening Chord on November 20th. We're going to break them all down right now, and we're going to start guest with Spiderpunk. Spiderpunk is a 3/3. Datamine is a 3/2, by the way, but they're like, let's juice this guy a little bit more. It's a 3/3 that reads, you can move this once. When this moves to a location, steal 2 power from the highest power enemy here. Guest, I'll give you the floor, and you might be new to the way we do things here on the Snapchat. We like to do star ratings from 1 to 5, sometimes admissible if you want to do a 0.5 rating. If you want to do like a 3.5 or something like that, if you're, on the fence a little bit. But I'll give you the floor. Spiderpunk, our season pass card. Guest, take it away.
I think Spiderpunk is going to be very surprising to people at 3/3, because you look at the total value on the fact that it can move once all by itself. But then the second half of the ability allows you that flexibility of, if you want to keep moving this via other mechanics like Iron Fist, Aranya, etc., every time it does extra moves, it's going to proc that second half of the ability again. So stealing 2 more power, stealing 2 more power. So this goes from being a 3/3 to a total 3/7 all by himself. Then consider all of these others of 3/11, 3/15 if you get multiple moves. I mean, this could scale value-wise over the board, honestly, really, really quickly. I am concerned, though, and I have been pushed back on this by several members of the community as well, that I am very worried that it's going to underperform week 1, because everyone sees the word steal, and the first week of the season, everyone wants to use the season pass. So I'm expecting the counter of Luke Cage to be everywhere. Yes. And if you don't run into Luke Cage, this card is amazing. If you do run into Luke Cage, it's just going to be a worse Nocturne.
No, you're absolutely right, actually. And it gave me a little bit of pause because, first of all, I think this card is a really good card, right?
Yes.
However,
yes.
There's a couple things I want to say. First of all, Luke Cage, definitely problematic. And we'll talk about Luke Cage, I think, with Deafening Chord, which is coming out on November 20th, because I feel like Deafening Chord will specifically target Luke Cage, which kind of made me surprised they didn't release Deafening Chord earlier in the season, by the way, because I was like, move players might want this card. I'm just throwing it out there, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, let's not lose track here. Spiderpunk, I think, is very strong. I think it's really good. But the problem with Spiderpunk is you're jump through a lot of hoops. There's another 3 cost in move that regularly gets to almost 100 power sometimes. And it's you have Human Torch, right? And I'm like, okay, you can go the Spiderpunk route, which I think is going to be way more fun and way more interactive than Human Torch is. But from a pure power perspective, I actually don't think Spiderpunk can trade blows with Human Torch. You know what I mean? Is that a valid concern?
It is. There's no way that this is not intended to keep up with Human Torch. This is meant to be treated more like an integrated tech card where you have to look at the additional synergies. This is a card that wants to scale and then take advantage of each of the unique parts of what this card does. It moves all by itself. Okay, so now you're thinking outside of that, you're thinking of cards like Miles Morales that automatically benefit from that. You see the stealing of the 2 power, so there's affliction involved. Then you start looking into cards like Ajax and Diamondback and all of these other cards that can affect multiple lanes. And you kind of end up down several different potential paths of where this card may want to go as just a strong stats piece that you drop on turn 3. Like Zorn, a card that not a lot of people play, you're going to see a lot more Zorn, which will automatically move that 3-cost card just by dropping it down, and then it'll just put it somewhere else, immediately take some power away. I think that there is going to be some unique deck building that comes from Spiderpunk with a lot of these mid-rangey shells like Scream. Like Scream decks really are going to enjoy this card, and I think that there's probably a best home for Spiderpunk in some kind of hybrid between Affliction, Scream, something that allows you to run Luke Cage, basically.
That's actually kind of hilarious. Luke Cage, offensively and defensively required. So a lot of interesting things there. The concern that I had, like, so going into this podcast, right, I do extensive notes on each of the cards. It helps me plan and prepare for the season. I know you're the same. You're a planner too. And it's like, when I was kind of trying to figure out where I want to go with Spiderpunk, one of the challenges I had was like, okay, you bring up Affliction. And I agree, there is potential synergy with Affliction and stuff like that, but the only challenge I have is that, again, you have Luke Cage, which will shut that all down immediately. And one thing we see in a lot of cards and archetypes is, well, yeah, technically, for instance, let's take discard for an example. You have the Conchu kind of style of like dependable discard almost with 8 boxes over that. Tournament winner, Golden Gauntlet tournament winner. And then you have like the Black Knight stuff, right? Now, Black Knight technically is a playable version of discard, but why don't we see it right now? We don't see it because it's not as effective as the Conchu version, and they've changed the Agatha shell enough that people don't play that version either. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to be playing Move, right, and you're trying to be as impactful as possible, and you're watching videos about top decks of the week and decks that are performing and best deck here, surprise Pikachu thumbnail face here, and you're like, I want to gain rank, it's going to be the Human Torch move list, right? Yeah. Because it has this very consistent plan. Despite the fact that I was thinking about this, I'm like, man, Spiderpunk is such a cool, well-designed card. Like, how great would this be in like a draft mode? How awesome is this as just an actual playable Marvel Snap card? But my concern is that it won't reach, I'm not convinced it beats what current Move does. And they even, listen, you know this and I know this, Move is by far one of the absolute best decks in Marvel Snap right now. The sees very little play because it's a very high committal deck. It's a skill cap deck. It's a deck that honestly, some people just don't find fun to play. I personally don't love playing traditional Move. Like the Human Torch stuff missed me with it. Like it's just not the way I want to play the game, right? Even though I respect what it does, right? Balance Move was the same. I just don't want to play that. But this is a deck that's incredibly effective. You have Mercury that just got nerfed. Right, and I keep saying, we got to go with the what's it called, the tinfoil hat. I wonder why Mercury got nerfed. Right? It's like
I have no idea. Here, I'm gonna grab this. Do I still have it? I do. There we go. I actually have a tinfoil hat for you, my friend. There we go. I'll put that on just for you. There you go. Because I
talk to me about Mercury then.
I can actually sense Mercury having this hat on here. I think that Mercury might have been nerfed because of the sales of the season pass. It's just a feeling I'm getting. Just a feeling
that we're all kind of feeling together, I think.
Yeah, but it might also be that I'm picking up ABC right now. I should probably take this off, but that's fine.
What I'll say though is I do think Spiderpunk is a good card. And I think it's eventually going to find its place, especially with Deafening, Chord, and a lot of the synergies that are here. There's going to be really good decks running Spiderpunk. And the other thing about the Affliction side of it, you can hit some really effectual things. You can hit stuff like Iron Man. Well, less likely, but you could potentially hit Iron Man in a solo location. Things like Cap Carter. Now, it does have text that specifically it will steal from the highest power, which could be a negative thing, right? Because, again, we're trying to target some cards that could be very, impacted. But, what if you're taking things out of Shang-Chi range? What if you're hitting a Typhoid Mary and taking it out of effectual Shang-Chi range? That could be kind of annoying, right? So, there's that side to it as well, which could potentially be problematic. But most importantly, what I was thinking about was the built-in mobility adds flexibility. It's going to be incredibly synergistic with almost this entire season.
Yes.
But that Luke Cage turnoff card has me concerned. So
Yeah.
for me, star-wise, the first week, I suspect it's going to feel like a 3-star card, and I feel like it's going to age into a 4-star card. And I wonder if they take a hard look at what Human Torch is doing, and they adjust how those decks play. I'm just curious about that, because if Spiderpunk can't compete with Human Torch, I wonder if that is a design dilemma they have to try to tackle.
I think the reason that Spiderpunk from the data mines, which was originally a 3-2, which is what most of us thought it was going to be, I think that everybody at second dinner went, hey, let's take a lesson from what happened with Scarlet Witch and let's apply that to Spiderpunk, because I think that 3-2 Spiderpunk makes sense at the end of November. When you look at all, like you said, the whole season, this card synergizes with all of those cards. And by the end of the season, this card might be too strong at 3-3. But on release, we might be looking at, okay, it needed that extra point of power because people will be playing into the counters. And they're already trying to take advantage of making the season pass be as, attractive as they can make it, because they don't want another zombie Scarlet Witch situation to happen again. That would be, me tinfoil hatting that. But in regards to, will this card age into a 4-star card? Probably, if it stays at 3-3. If it continues at 3-3 and then you're looking at a total value of 3-7, that's, even if it just does its ability one time and you put no other synergies to that, that's really, really good. And I think of a very relevant card right now, a very relevant deck, right now, Sauron, where you do see a lot of Scar. And by taking down that Typhoid Mary from a 4-10 to a 4-8, this card helps to combat that. And losing that one card on turn 6 because you can't get the Scar for nearly free, I mean, that is something to consider as a tech piece for this card. It's not a affliction in the sense of needing to put power down just to remove power. It's a tech piece that you're trying to integrate differently because of the matchup that we are seeing a lot of.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. And going back to the power, I don't know if this is ever going to release at 3-2, because I think it had to come out as 3-3 because of Ezekiel Sims. When we get to Ezekiel Sims, I think that that's probably a factor, and you'll see why in a second. I don't want to kind of jump too far ahead, but guess you haven't given us a star rating.
I'm going to say it's going to release as I'll do 3.5. I do think it is going to release okay, but I would expect it to get better with time, just like every Affliction card has ever done. The first week it comes out, it's mediocre, it's okay-ish, and then about a week and a half later, when people forget about that, they go, oh, yeah, this is doing the thing more consistently.
Absolutely. And for the record, I want this card to actually land well. I suspect that the play style is going to be very interactive and very fun. And the way that everything's going to kind of build in together as a deck, I think the deck builds itself in a lot of ways. And you're right, there are different avenues you can go. You can go like kind of Scream Affliction style stuff, and I think that's really cool. And so, and also, you just like Nocturne was a 3-5 that just moved once and sometimes scammed you with a location. This is a 3-3 that essentially effectually is a 3-7 that also has the move. Like, it's also just a good card. So if you're like a relatively low collection level player and you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'll throw $10 at the game this month. You're probably getting something. You'd be like, I don't know what to put in this deck. I'm missing what I'll just fill with Spiderpunk, right? You know what I mean? Like, you probably are able to do that to some effectiveness, which is kind of neat. But yeah, Spiderpunk, looking good, especially when you consider how good Rocket and Groot was on release, by the way. This card's looking like it's cut from the same cloth, which is going to take us to our next card, which for some reason, I was trying to center the card on the screen, and for some reason, I almost ruined our whole layout there. We have Man Spider. Now, this is going to be the Super Premium Season Pass card, available on November 4th. You can access this card using your tokens. Conversely, you could get those Benjamins out. You can invest in the Super Premium version of the Season Pass. This is a 5-1 that reads, on reveal, merge the last card you played into this. When this merges, double its power. The trailer gave us the opportunity to see that you actually do not have to play it in the same location, which is actually kind of a superpower in my opinion. You can move significant amounts of power across the board thanks to Manspider. Oh, you're going to Shang-Chi my Red Skull? Nope, it's over here now, right? So that's kind of interesting. But before I take away too many of these synergies, guest, I'll give you the floor here. Star rating and general first impressions.
I think this card's going to surprise people because we saw a meta about a month and a half ago where Ghost Spider was just an incredibly strong card. Everybody wanted to play it into every deck because you had that unpredictability of where's the power going to shift to for good value. This is a heavier investment by a long shot, but the fact that it doubles the power, I mean, just something as simple as Typhoid Mary into this. That's crazy. That's a 22 power play, and then go ahead and just Taskmaster it. That's fine. You can do something crazy like that. So I expect this to appear in Sauron decks because it's going to be very simple as a 5-cost card to get crazy amounts of power. But outside of that, I really want to see how the shift of power also works when the merges happen, if there are other effects involved with it. For example, something like Electro. You know, we see that Electro just got a buff. Okay, it's going to be a 3/5 Electro that you put into this. That's still a turn 4 12 power play and then no downside. I'm going to consider that pretty good. Or if there are other procs that also happen from this card, I expect it to do better than I think people would expect, because the only 5/1 we've had, at least in recollection, is White Tiger. And something about looking at the aesthetic of 5/1, it makes you want to say, eh. But when you play it, I think it's going to pleasantly surprise people. I want to see how they can shift, how you can shift power around from dead on reveals also. Something like Gwenpool. Because Gwenpool is going to give you also this great amount of power to your hand, and then afterwards, it's just kind of a mediocre body on the board. But if you hit Manspider in that same process, then you can play the Manspider down, which might be a 5/5, for example, absorb that body and then reinforce from it. Like, I think there's some unique, cheeky plays that are going to happen from Manspider's ability to reallocate power or capitalize on mediocre power at the last second by pulling a juke.
No, absolutely. And do you want to give us a preemptive star rating?
I'm going to say this is... I'm going to say it's a 4-star right off the bat, honestly. I like it a little bit better than Spiderpunk, but obviously for very different reasons. So I think that Manspider is going to be making a bigger splash than Spiderpunk Week 1.
So here's the thing. My man, I agree. I'm actually coming 4.5 on Manspider.
Wow.
And it's a little higher. Now, I do have another 5-star card of this month. It's not Manspider. I do think Manspider is going to be a very good card. But where it's different is that I think that Manspider is going to be almost an essential component in the decks it's going to play in. Whereas I think that, these Spiderpunk is going to have a little bit more variation, a little bit more variability. I think it's going to have a wider niche to fill. Whereas Manspider, it's going to do a specific thing in a specific deck. That deck's going to be a very good deck, and it's going to be a linchpin card. That's what I expect. And something that I've learned in Marvel Snap is if you can make one deck, and that deck is consistently like a top 6 performer or top 8 performer, then you're relevant, man. You are relevant. Look what Redshift did for Agatha. Look what Redshift did. Yeah. You just sometimes need one thing to change, and everything changes. And I think that Manspider might be one of those things. So very effective in the decks it's going to be played in. It's going to be a little more niche. The text removal, I think, is a cool tool, but it does limit its range of usability, right? You bear that in mind. The Taskmaster plays are really interesting. I like the idea of copying juiced power cards and stuff like that. You could potentially do things where like you magic, and then you Shuri, Red Skull, Manspider, Taskmaster, right? Kind of cute, maybe like a little obvious. Maybe you catch like the first couple days, you catch people by surprise with that, but then it's going to be so unbelievably telegraphed that they're like, okay, you can't really pull that off. But like Electro Ramp, you did touch on it, but I want to go back to that. Remind me, was Electro a 3/2 at one point?
I was just talking about this the other day. Electro's been on a wild ride, man, and it was a 3/2, and then second dinner just keeps going, give it another. Give it another. Still not good yet? All right. Give it one more. Just now we're up to 3/5. It's awesome.
It is. It's ridiculous. And the last time I think the OG Electro 3-2 even made sense was with the OG Sandman, where you used to ramp into Sandman and then it just shut the whole game down. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, this sucks. We may as well change Sandman, right? So they did that. But Electro going from a 3-2 to a 3-5 is crazy. And it basically plowed the road for Man-Spider's interaction, right? Especially since like you can do something honestly as simple as, and I'm going to make this call out too, because if you want to do Electro ramp and you're relatively low collection level free-to-play player or whatever, you could seriously probably make the argument for Electro 3, Man-Spider on 4, and then just like do Odin is probably enough. Right? Like that's kind of a cool play, like your classic, Electro ramp, do Odin finish type thing. It's not great. It's not the greatest thing that's been, power crept nonstop since like, I don't know, release week, but just throwing it out there. Like you do have some relatively kind of beginner friendly combos that you can do. But with Man-Spider, honestly, being able to move the power from one location to another is a superpower. And I think it's going to have a major effect on the viability of the card, just because you're able to dodge Shun-Chi's. You're able to pull it into interesting locations, which I think could potentially be valuable. Because remember, it doesn't have to be played on a location here. It'll pull from anywhere. Right? Which I think is going to be very, very interesting. So that is the conversation around Man-Spider. We're coming in pretty hot here. I think the Man-Spider is going to be niche. It's going to be good. And as general as it is, we should probably comment on this too. The Super Premium Season Pass, obviously, it is a much significantly added expense to the standard Season Pass. You are still able to get the card using your tokens. The baseline Season Pass, though, still remains one of the best values you can get in Marvel Snap for your hard-earned dollars. So, do consider that if you're interested in the Season Pass card of this month. The next card, guest, this is my 5-star. This is the banger. I have to lead with it. I think this is an absolute banger, man. Superior Spider-Man. Guest apparently doesn't agree, but this is going to be spicy. I like this. As opposed to you just being like, yeah, Alex, high five, boom. I want you to be like, no, Alex, you're wrong. This card sucks. Makes for interesting conversation. Superior Spider-Man is a 3/4 that reads, at the start of each turn, you get +1 energy if you have any cards with increased power in play. Dude, I think this card is so good. I think it is so good. It has great stats at 3/4 considering it's a ramp option. It is so non-committal considering like, okay, sometimes, yes, you're going to get scammed. You don't get the activator early on to get the increased power, stuff like that, but usually I bet you're going to have it. And I think this is free ramp so often, especially in decks that are going to want to play that, I don't know, that one cost Miles Morales, which now essentially is just free on curve because of the benefit you're getting from this bad boy. I think Superior Spider-Man is absolutely going to clap some cheeks.
I think it'll be good, but I'm pretty sure my cheeks will not be red in the process. I think that this is a good card because I look at this and I go, what deck do I want to play this in versus what deck do I want to play Hope Summers in? When you're playing Hope Summers, you're playing with the flexibility of wanting to have potentially more power on very specific turns and have it proc more than once. You're playing things like, spells on there or Nightcrawler or things that you can move off regularly. Then you're looking at a Wiccan line where it's like, okay, this is specifically dedicated towards turns 5 and 6, and I'm curving to know that everything's going to happen turn 5 and turn 6. Then I look at this card, and I go, if I get this down on turn 3, I could be ahead of curve on turn 5. On turn 4 with that extra energy, and that turn 4 is the entire identity of this card. This whole card is based on the idea that you get things to happen on turn 1 and 2, like Silver Sable, for example, get some green power on the board, play the Hunger, get some green power on the board, and then by turn 4, you're playing a 5-cost thing that you were trying to make happen beforehand that the other ramp cards could not allocate for. That's the whole identity of this card, which is why I am worried we're about to go back to some Professor X shenanigans because of what this card organically wants to do. Like, look at Hawkeye. Easy way to do it. You play Hawkeye into a guaranteed 2-drop Domino, drop this on 3 and Prof X on 4. Like that, and that's a lane lockdown all by itself. It's a lot of power in a lane that you couldn't build into the same way earlier. and then you could just play a whole bunch of lockdown shenanigans, do some juggernauting, because even if you hit it into that lane, it's already got a lot of power into it. Like, I think that this is going to be introducing some of those 5-cost shenanigans that Second Dinner a couple of months ago specifically said, we want 5-cost cards to be more relevant. This card single-handedly is probably going to be able to do that.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And it's interesting where our minds went, because I'm thinking more along the lines of, this could potentially go in the move-based shells which are going to develop with Spiderpunk and some of the others. And I can see this as being like, literally, I stay on curve and I play Miles Morales effectively for free. You know what I mean? And also, yeah, you could add Professor X to that mix, because you can move into it and perhaps your opponent can't, right? If you're short power or whatever. And the other thing is that Ezekiel Sims, once again, is activated by Superior Spider-Man. If you play Superior Spider-Man on top of Ezekiel Sims, you've satisfied the requirement. He moves and you got green power. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with Ezekiel, I can see that 100%. I was just a little confused with the Miles Morales call out, because I'm like, how does this get you free Miles Morales? But now I see where your brain is going. We put all the synergies together. That's how we're getting to it, because it's a 2-cost card that'll get green power without even thinking about it, because it just automatically sees a 3/4 and then we'll do the move. It now has green power. Now you're good to go. Now I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, I should clarify. When I say free Miles Morales, I'm referring to the fact that you're on now turn 4 and you're able to play a 4-costed card because you have 5 energy plus the Miles Morales. Like, the effect of Superior Spider-Man effectively makes Miles Morales free with the extra energy you've achieved. That's what I meant by free, because of the ramp. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that. And that's where I'm trying to figure out what other decks besides Lockdown, right? Does Superior Spider-Man make a deck more powerful by having a 5-cost card drop on turn 4? And as you deck build and you start, try to mess with the synergies of what this card wants to do with that specific game plan, then you start really deck building without sacrificing. Because I think most other scenarios, Hope Summers is a better call, or Wiccan is a better call. More often than not, even Merlin nowadays, which is in everything for all the right reasons, even that could be a better call very often. This is exclusively, how can I benefit turn 4? And if you can make an impactful play on turn 4 that can more or less win you the game because of Superior Spider-Man and the shenanigans that happened beforehand, I think that's how you get the most out of this card. And I'm not 100% sold it's a 5-star card, but I am sold that extra energy is almost always good in some capacity. So I expect it to be a 3-star card on release.
Nice. I like that. So we got a bit of a gap here, which means that one of us will have to buy lunch for the other at the end of the season for either done. A little bit of a friendly wager here. But I do agree with what you're saying. The one thing I kind of want to bring mention to, though, is that I feel like this card is going to very naturally fall into what these decks are going to want to do anyways. Whereas, like, you bring up Hope Summers. Hope Summers requires that you have the space, you play directly into that location. Superior Spider-Man doesn't require that. Electro has the ongoing effect where you're basically only playing 1 card per turn. Luna Snow provides additional energy. Jennifer Kale has the activate. You can't play the game. Psylocke provides the energy, but then it's kind of a weak body, but also you have to time her with the prior turn. Like, there's all these kind of, like, you're getting the ramp, but, right? And I feel like this is one of the easier buts to deal with, especially when you consider what we have this season. Even if you don't play this, like, on turn 3, like, if you play Ezekiel Sims 2, you play Spiderpunk on turn 3, they both move. You can move the Spiderpunk, steal power, then play this. Now you're ramping into a 6-cost card, right? So, like, I just see this ramp capability being very easy to pull off. And, like, Hope Summers is not a hard one to pull off. And Hope Summers has the advantage of, like, I'm playing Kitty Pryde, I'm getting 2 energy per turn or whatever. So Hope, don't get me wrong, I love Hope Summers. I call her Cope Summers because I'm constantly coping her into decks where she doesn't belong. I love Hope Summers, man. You're preaching to the converted here. But I do think the Superior Spider-Man it's going to have his time, man. I think he's going to be a very strong card.
I hope you're right. And I would love nothing more than to buy you lunch. I'm just pretty sure you're going to be satisfying a Snap-a-Tite segment on my channel.
That's fair. As our next card, and we've alluded to a whole bunch of times, we've alluded to Ezekiel Sims several times here because it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one coming out on November 11th. So this is after the release of the initial onslaught of cards. We have Ezekiel Sims, a 2/2 that reads, after you play a card with higher power here, give this +2 power and move this to another location. Guest, as is tradition, I will give you the floor. What are your thoughts and star rating on Ezekiel Sims?
I am much lower on this card than many of my cohorts. I think that this card is cool. It is unique, and it'll have a couple of homes where it does some crazy things. And yes, I agree with you that it is 100% one of the biggest reasons that we see a buff to the season pass, because you're going to want to play big cards repeatedly to get Ezekiel to move over and over and over, including multiple times in the same turn. You know, you have a 1/6 with Miles Morales. That's going to help being able to proc this, you know, if you're trying to catch up. I worry that it's going to just become a nuisance to build around, because the condition gets more and more difficult the more moves that it satisfies, where getting one move out of it to turn it into a 2/4, super easy. Even to a 2/6, playing anything that's 5 cost or higher, relatively easy. As you get past that, that's where I start to say, was it worth it? And if we learned anything from seeing what 2-cost cards want to do, we have incredibly strong 2-cost cards in the game. This is never replacing an Iron Patriot. This is never replacing a Sam Wilson. This is wanting to create some kind of synergy with maybe like a Sauron deck where it's always big bodies and you can easily get, you know, 4 moves if you play it perfectly out on curve. Like there's cool things you can do with this in very niche decks, but I don't think this is going to be a plug and play 2/6, 2/8 that people kind of expect it to be. I think you get much more value from synergy rather than just a little bit of extra power that Ezekiel Sims brings. I think that he releases with a lot of hope and leaves with a lot of cope.
All right. Star rating then, because I think we're kind of on the same track. I might be slightly higher than you, but be curious about your star rating.
I'm going to say 2.5.
2.5. So that sounds about right, because I have 3 written down. And I do agree. This is one of those cards I think is very easy to ramp a couple times, but has a very hard ceiling, right? Very hard ceiling that's hard to get through. Obviously, you know, Hellions can get through that. Heimdalls can get through it. But I'm not sure if that's what those decks look like, right? Like currently that's what they kind of look like, but I don't know if this is a key part of that, right? With the superior Spider-Man and some of the Spider-Man cards we're getting like Spiderpunk, I see some immediate synergy there because of the way their power is stacked, which I think is cool. You also have something like Batroc the Leaper, right? You can have Batroc down, you have Ezekiel Sims down, and all of a sudden you got dudes bouncing everywhere, right? I kind of wonder if this can replace something like a Silk, right? Has a bit of a higher ceiling, but Silk, you can keep it swinging around, right? Feeding that Hydra Stomper. I wonder if Ezekiel Sims and Silk kind of compete for that spot, but it wouldn't surprise me if Ezekiel Sims ultimately lost out to Silk, because Silk has some advantages too, right? Also some disadvantages, let's be honest. But when I think about like, okay, Hydra Stomper, Craven, this card naturally wants to be in the decks with the cards that are coming out this season. I see that like they're kind of were obviously designed together, and Ezekiel Sims was very carefully, but like this is where the 2/2 stat line looks terrible, but it's actually a bit of a superpower, because if it was higher, it'd be more difficult to proc. You'd be getting less Hydra Stomper procs, and Batroc wouldn't be bounced around, and you'd be getting less moves as a whole. So you want it to start kind of achievably low, but as it gets higher, you're right. Like, what do you do at some point? But then again, is 2/6 enough? Like, let's be honest, it's a 2/6. Is 2/8 enough? It probably is, no?
I would like to think so, but we've had this exact same conversation this past season. We talked about the exact same thing with Zombie Mr. Fantastic. Is 2/8 good enough? And unless if you're really leaning all into what that card can do to get the maximum 2/8 out of it, you're still debating, is it the 13th card in the deck? And that's where I think Ezekiel Sims kind of lands simultaneously. I think this ends up being something that you look at like, okay, you want to have these synergies. You want to look at these move synergies or these Hydra Stomper synergies. why wouldn't I just play Merlin and Werewolf by Night?
Yeah, oh, 100%.
This it doesn't compete in any way. So that's why I have it so low, because as you said, there's a very hard cap on this, and I think the hard cap is probably 2.8, but more often than not, because of all of these synergy style based decks, I think that it really is going to be the 2.6, and I just don't think 2.6 moves the needle.
Yeah, and the other thing, I'm almost talking myself down to 2.5 too, 2.5. Because like I see what you're saying, because the other side to this is that like there's a good chance that this just does not move enough to work with the Hydra Stomper like you hope. Silk will outperform it there. And if you have a relatively accessible card like Silk, Ezekiel Sims suddenly becomes extremely skippable because they feel like they're two peas in a pod, right? They're kind of trying to accomplish the same thing to some degree. This card also, I don't see many dials on it. Like if they want to buff it, what do? If they buff the numbers, then it doesn't move as much, right? So I'm starting to think, Guess, I think you might be right. I'm gonna reiterate down to 2.5. I'm gonna come with you 2.5 because you've talked me down, and I think you are correct. I think there are some more challenges around Ezekiel Sims, despite the fact it's going to be working with some good cards. I think it's going to be those good cards that carry Ezekiel Sims in those decks.
I'll give you a weird situation with this card. I think it actually gets buffed if you make it a 2/1.
Okay, let's go.
Because if you think of how 4-cost cards in particular look, if you're moving the Ezekiel Sims around, let's say you drop a 3-cost card on turn 3, you get it to move once, it's now a 2/4. Okay, great, awesome. On turn 4, that looks good, get another movement to happen, it's a lot easier to hit that move. Okay, now you're getting a total value of 2/6 in the old version. But if he's a 2/5 with 2 moves, that's much more attainable to get, not only to move one more time, but the value of the card is still considered good. 2/5, as we just talked about with the Silk and competing for that spot, I think that this card competes better when you know you can get to 2/7 more consistently. And I think that it's easier to get to 2/7 than it is in a 2/1 version of Ezekiel Sims than it is to get to 2/8 with the 2/2 version of Ezekiel Sims. I think it's oddly a buff if they were to actually shave a power off of it.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I think I agree with you. I think you've sold me on Ezekiel Sims. Also, I'm just going to throw this out there. I have no idea who this is. I've watched the movies. I have no idea who Ezekiel Sims is. Do you know who this is?
I'm like the worst. I'm the worst person to ask with lore on. I will say I might be in Cozy's seat, but I do not have that much lore knowledge as that man. So yeah, no, sorry.
Now I do know who Spider-Man Noir is because my man, that is Nicolas Cage. You tell me, yeah, what an absolute god gamer, man. And it's funny because I always joke, I always call people always comment in my videos. Every time I see Luke Cage, I call him Nicolas Cage or Nick Cage. And I always joke like that. And it's funny because there is some history there about why Nicolas Cage chose his stage name to be Nicolas Cage. That's a whole other conversation for another day. But we do have Spider-Man Noir, which is a Series 5 card releasing on November 18th, guest. And this card got a massive buff from the data mines. Now, I'm not a big data mine, person, but I do know this was at a 4/4 originally, I believe. Now it's coming out as a 4/6. A 2-point power buff coming in to the release. I'm just going to throw it out there. I think this card might have been a little poo-poo in testing. But what I will tell you is it's a complicated card. One of the more complicated cards we've had in a while. It's a 4/6 that reads, on reveal, if your other cards in play cost exactly 8 total, add the top card of your deck here. Set its power to 8 as a 0/8. Dude, this is a weird one. This is like some Magic the Gathering style text. I'll give you the floor. What are your thoughts and star rating?
So on initial look of the card, you go, huh? And then you sit down and you start to really analyze, okay, what can get you to a total of 8 costs to work with, right? Especially if you're trying to curve this out. This is not a Zabu style card. You're not looking to ramp this thing out. This is a turn 4 or later card. And more often than not, you're struggling with the mindset that this is a turn 4 or later card, because the later it goes, the chances are the more cards you have on the board, which means you might not be able to get the effect to potentially happen. But when you start factoring in cards like Mysterio that are putting down multiple 2-cost cards, or Squirrel Girl that are putting 3 1-cost cards down, then you start to see the power potential of what Spider-Man Noir wants to do. I think this card actually is secretly one of the better cards of the month with a little bit of finesse. It's going to take some real deck building challenges to organize it, but I throw this to you, right? You throw down a Squirrel Girl because you pull it on the opening hand. Great. That's 3 out of the 8 you qualify with right off the bat. You have a Domino in the deck, so it's a guaranteed 2. Awesome. Now you're up to 5. Any 3-cost card then afterwards, that's got to feel good because now you're hitting this on curve. So the only thing you're really looking to do is trying to figure out how do you get to 8 easiest. And I think there are 2 ways to do that. One of them is Squirrel Girl into Domino, because if you're building a loaded 3-cost deck anyway, foreshadowing, I think this card has a lot of value. The other way is still Domino in just any style of Surfer deck, because then you're going Domino into 3-cost card into 3-cost card. So by playing this on turn 5, you're getting a free card to drop down also out of the board, out of your deck, and it's increasing its power to 8 by setting the power to 8. So it's almost like an alternative version of playing Sarah Surfer, because you can play Sarah in the deck and Domino in the deck and then load everything else with 3-cost cards, and the deck runs itself. Either you get Sarah down on 5 to get you 3-cost cards, or you play Spider-Man Noir, which plays a free 3-cost card on turn 5, and then you just play 2 others. So you hit the same goal, just 2 very different ways. And I think that's kind of the direction you start to want to build into with this card. But is it actually worth all of that investment into a deck just to get a free card onto the board and have its power set to 8? That's why I think it got buffed to a 4/6, because now I feel like it could be justified in that space.
We touch on like a couple key things together here, and I think one of them is going to be that this is a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yes.
A lot of hoops to jump through. And one thing that I think that is not being mentioned here is the fact that like you're doing all that with Squirrel Girl and Domino, and then your location 3 is Monster Island, and you're cooked, right? And stuff like that's going to happen too. The amount of locations that add junk to the board is going to absolutely just piss you off. If you thought playing Cerebro was annoying, this is also going to be pretty annoying for that exact reason, right? There's some cool things you can do, right? Like I thought about, okay, what are things like, debris technically adds rocks and accounts for 5. But like what happens, you're designing these decks with Squirrel Girl and debris and all this stuff. And then like, oh, you get the 0/8 come down and it's just a 0/8 debris on turn 5 or 6. You're like, okay, cool,
right.
I guess. You know what I mean? It's like, what does the deck look like? You can't control your draws. You can't control the shape of the deck. You can't control what's on the top. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's a lot of hoops to jump through for what could potentially be you 0/8 an Iron Man. That's sick. You take that all day long, right? But you're probably going to 0/2. I mean, actually, 0/2 Sinister is pretty good. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah. Sinister's good. It's one of the good ones. But you also have to look at the card backwards. Like what happens when you have too much? That's Monster Island scenario. Then you've got cards like Venom, which can actually reduce the total power. The total costs that are on the board. So you had that monster and then 1-cost card here, 1-cost card here, and now you're sitting at way too much to make the effect work. Go ahead and just Venom the whole thing and you bring that whole lane down to 3. So there is a plus and minus effect in here. So maybe there's some kind of destroy synergies. You look at misery decks. Misery decks very often only have 2 or 3 cards on the board by the time you get the misery down on 4, and you've got all of the power in your hand. Then play the Spider-Man Noir plus demons and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's where I think we start kind of experimenting with Spider-Man Noir, which is why I think it's, with a little finesse, probably one of the secretly better cards, but probably the most difficult card of the season simultaneously. So this is a card I do not expect to see good numbers on your favorite tracking service, but I do think that in higher ELO, somebody's going to break this card and it's going to be really difficult to keep up with. So I'm going to give it a 3. I think because it's right in the middle of high ELO breaking it, being just a straight up like insanely busted card, and then the entire rest of the field, with myself included in there, going, this is just too much work.
There's a good chance that someone cooked something absolutely disgusting with it. I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And it's also the type of card where, over time, like as more cards get released and like there's going to be other cards that add things to the field of play that might make this condition much easier to accomplish. So yeah, Spider-Man Noir, definitely an interesting one. Gonna have to keep the eye on that one. It's gonna be an interesting deck building week. Every once in a while we get a deck building week. Like you're just like, what am I gonna do with this thing? And I think the Spider-Man Noir is gonna be one of those for me. The next card is probably one of the most anticipated cards of the season. We have the Prowler, coming out on November 25th. You got to wait all the way to the end of the year, end of the season there. But this is an absolute banger guest. The Prowler is a 3/4 that reads, on reveal, add 2 Thief's Tools to your hand. Set their cost to 0 if a card moved last turn. And to answer the question I'm sure you already have off the top of your head, what are these tools you speak of? Right? One is called Vibro Shock Gauntlets, and it is a 1-costed skill that reads, on reveal, give your highest power card here +2 power. You get +1 energy next turn. You also have Remote Minds, which is a 1-costed skill that reads, on reveal, afflict the 2 highest power enemy cards here with -2 power. Finally, you have the Flight Harness, which reads, as a 1-costed skill, on reveal, give your highest power card here +1 power and move it to the right. Guest, what are your thoughts on Prowler?
This is one of the most anticipated cards of the season. Hands down, I think, people are excited for the combination of the character as well as the combination of what it actually does. I think this is probably going to be the best release of the season because of what those skills present, which is the ability to be free and the amount of power that organically can come from this single card with all of these Thief's Tools and all of the triggers that can happen because of free skills. This card is going to be ridiculously strong because you look at like what Merlin, we talked about it earlier, Merlin and Werewolf by Night right now. Okay, really good synergy. You're seeing it pop up in a lot of decks. Horde, for example, wants to take advantage of that. Here, let me just give you some free skills that will organically happen because Werewolf is going all over the place. This is just so much power for 3 potential cost. And it's so easy to move things across the board. So let me give you 2 more skills for free and then really go crazy with that. We're not even looking at doing shenanigans with Hitmonkey, which comes in and out of the meta at different times. But this is another one where you've got free cards to drop on turn 6 with Hitmonkey. Yet alone, if you're also doing that with Werewolf by Night at the same time, like there's so much power that's going to come from not from the skills themselves, but from what the skills will enable because they will be free. That's where the power of this card is. This is my, as we say it as well, the diamond card of the month, the 5-star card of the month. This is going to be the top performer of the month by a long shot, in my opinion.
I love this card. I'm giving it a 4.5, so you're coming in at a 5, essentially. This is a fantastic card. Just going to throw it out there. Another Ezekiel Sims card, for the record, right? Because Ezekiel Sims will allow it to move immediately and make those skills free. And then on turn 4, you could literally just Werewolf by Night and then start going boom, 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 boom. He's bouncing around. Yep. He's loving life, right? Yeah, I absolutely agree. The Merlin Werewolf by Night shells is where this guy's going to go. Does Ezekiel Sims want to be in a Werewolf by Night deck? That's the question. Probably not. That's the problem we got. But anyways, long story short, I absolutely agree. This card is fantastic. And it is going to be a universally awesome card, which I feel like it has move synergy, but also if you're just a player that's like, I just want a cool card to play because, I'm just collecting stuff willy-nilly, I'm free to play whatever. This is something worth getting with tokens. If you're like, I got 6K tokens sitting here, they're burning a hole in my pocket, I want something cool. This is not necessarily like a card that has to be in the decks with the Spider-Verse and all this stuff. It does not have to be in because Horde last season was very much like, you got to be in. You know what I mean? You got to be in for the Horde.
Mm-hmm.
With Prowler, I think
Yeah.
you can look at this and be like, bro, I just want to play the Prowler. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. And obviously, it's very analogous to, I was going to say Hope Summers, Kate Bishop, right? Kate Bishop's adding a lot to them, but there's added consistency here. There's three skills, and you're getting 2 of them, man. So,
Yeah.
like, there's a little bit more consistency. Like, if you're playing Affliction, just like not Hope Summers, like, why do I keep doing that? Just like when you're playing Kate Bishop, you'll play her in a Clog Shell for that chance to get the Acid Arrow. If you're playing Affliction, you could legit consider playing, this, because you're going to be getting stuff like Remote Mines most of the time, 66% of the time, whatever. That might be bad math, but you know what I mean, right? You're getting Remote Mines often. Yeah, I'm on point. Thank you. We don't do math on my channel, right? We just go with the feel sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, long story short, I do agree, dude. This is going to be a good card.
Yeah, I think that we also look at a card like Nico Minoru, which allows a lot of flexibility. And we see people plug and play Merlin because of that flexibility. This fills that same void, but at free cost. So I expect this to be something that actually makes really good shells, like Wiccan shells right now that are playing speed. I think they play this instead. I think this replaces that because of the total value that you get out of that card. And the only thing you're really trying to integrate at some point is some small move, because all you need is one. And Sam Wilson already provides that organically with him being in a billion different decks anyway, too. So throw it into a Sam Wilson deck, no problem. I think the Werewolf by Night, you were asking, like, does Ezekiel Sims fit with all of this? And I don't think it's that. I think this plus Batrick is where you end up actually going, because you could just drop that down on turn 1 and then just wait. And then all of the chaos ensues afterwards. I think that this is such a plug-and-play card that if you only had one place to use your tokens the entire month, this is where you would use your tokens, because it will be used, like you said, in Affliction decks. You'll be able to move it in move decks. You'll be able to do it in lockdown decks. You'll be able to do it in so many different places. And I really do think that it's just incredibly strong because of that. So do not sleep on this card. It is flexible, it is powerful, and something that you should be targeting towards the end of the month.
All right, guest, and now we're on to Hydro Man, the Sanctum Series 4 card releasing, where you'll be able to kind of unlock it from November 24th to December 1st. I'm going to come in at 3 stars on Hydro Man. Maybe I should read what he does first. I'm kind of jumping the gun here.
It's fine.
5'8". He's a 5'8". Hydro Man on reveal. Set the cost of each deck's top card to 1. Now, the thing I like about this card, and I don't think this is like an amazing card by any means. I think it's a Series 4 card, because I think it's going to be a little more niche and maybe less exciting. I'm just going to throw it out there. Mobius and Mobius, pretty decent tech card, and it will not allow your opponent's card to get discounted. So there it is. That's probably... Wait. Guess has something he wants to say here. He gave me the wait a minute, Alex.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. You don't have to worry about that. Mobius will not even be a problem with this card, because there's another card that will actually prevent it from being a problem whatsoever. Black Widow.
Oh, I never thought of that. You're cooking.
Block him.
That's awful. That's so rude.
I know it's rude. And
That's rude.
I
How
hate
dare you.
that I thought of it too, but yeah, it's just awful when you think of dropping a Hydra Man on turn 5, then activate your Black Widow so they don't draw the 1-cost card, only you do. So Mobius, he can do whatever he's got to do. That's fine.
Damn, that's such a good idea. And if you have Mobius and Mobius out anyway, you can be like, do I just activate this Widow first anyways, because there might be cooked regardless, or do you save it for that last turn?
Yeah.
It's a good call, man. It's a good call. Yeah, because I immediately, my head went to Mobius and Mobius, just like making their life miserable, right?
Yeah.
But also, here's an interesting thing. Is this a ramp card? Could you ramp with this? Like, is this something you want to ramp to, or not really? I'm just coping. I think this is a weaker card. I'm coping a bit.
It's not a card you want to necessarily ramp if you don't have to worry about the fact that on the same turn, you just go, okay, Hydra Man on 5, Man Spider 1-cost card on turn 6. And now that Hydra Man just turned into a 5/18, essentially, and moved to the power to a different lane, which is one of your favorite parts of Man Spider. So I actually like Hydra Man in that shell. I also like Hydra Man in Darkhawk, because you're already pumping your opponent's deck full of rocks. So what if you turned a rock into a 1-cost card? Chances are you probably are doing that organically. So if you can mitigate that by not doing the Mobius stuff, there's actually some cool things you can do with Hydro-Man, and also what it enables you long term, like Sunspot, because you might be saving energy on the final turn because you got a card for cheap. Okay, so let's turn that reduced cost for you into power for you. Or things like Elsa Bloodstone, because now you have more cards you can drop on the final turn. Clognaline gets some extra power. Like, there are actually, I think, going to be some surprising members of the community who look at this card and figure out cool things to do with it. But for me, I think the Black Widow synergy and the Man-Spider synergy actually make this card worthwhile and about a 3.5 stars in my opinion.
Ooh, damn, nice. So I'm glad we're kind of in agreement that the card's probably not terrible or anything like that, which I think a lot of people were kind of thinking it would be. I was trying to figure out, the deck that I kind of want to try to figure out is, can I figure out a mill deck where I play this with an extra energy? Like, you have Superior Spider-Man out, so turn 5 you have 6 energy. You play Hydro-Man into Yondu, and you just pump you banish the card.
There you go.
Like, because it's probably going to be the cheapest card in their deck, likely, right?
Yep.
So you discount it, then you just pump it. Kind of interesting, no? Or if you mill them and they don't even have it. Yeah.
I hadn't thought of mill with that as a way to mitigate that downside, but I actually really like that.
Yeah, I was thinking like you need the extra energy, but like we have literally Superior Spider-Man. Like, why not play something that gives you extra energy at some point? And then as soon as you have a green card, Superior Spider-Man is just giving you energy, right? You don't have to keep playing, as long as they don't get like Shadow King, he's going to give you that extra energy. And then like, oh, discounted card, boom, see you later, bud. And they retreat.
Yeah. There's probably some like weird cheeky things too that happen with Pixie because of this card. I think there's some cheeky things that might be able to happen, manipulating some blink things. Like, it's a cook card, which is why I'm actually very interested in it.
It kind of like reminds me of like Nomura, where like there might just be like the one deck, like, oh, this is the Hydro-Man mill deck or the Hydro-Man whatever deck, where like it's kind of a bit of a one trick, but it's doing the thing. You know what I mean? So I'm not completely down on Hydro-Man. I'm kind of feeling it, to be honest with you. Now we get into some actual bangers. Now we're on to the Series 4 section of our conversation. This is a long pod, my man. Hopefully you got your energy, but hold on here. Web Sling is what we're going to start with. This is a one-costed skill. The art should be more indicative that it's a skill. I do apologize. It's a one-costed skill on reveal. Next turn, you can move one of your cards away from here. This is also going to be available on November 4th. I think this is a good card. It's basically like Madam Web in skill form. But guess, before I kind of pump through all the synergies I was thinking about, why don't you give me your initial star rating on Web Sling?
This is just straight up good. I think that all of the reasons you like playing Madam Web is why you also like playing Web Sling. Except you only are limiting yourself to one cost, make it happen one time on one specific turn. And I look at the power of Horde right now, which is really good, and you're wanting to pump up the Zombie Scarlet Witch. This card likes that. It's obvious in move because you can just move cards around as needed. Sure, of course. But outside of that, then you're looking at cards. Even C3 kind of contemplates on these kinds of things, like you saw with the Madam Web piece, and people are playing these multiple man C3 style decks. This might be a nice alternative because it's cheaper and it fits the deck better because of it. I think there's going to be about 1 billion different homes for this card. Like, you think of how we look at Vision and any of these single move or multiple move cards, and you think, yeah, this is going to be strong. So as a one cost, make anything potentially move once, and you could even use it as a juke. Just like, hey, yeah, something's going to move away from here. Nope. That's got to be good. So this is probably I don't know if I'd say a 4-star skill, and I'm leaning towards it just because it's so flexible,
Yeah, I was in the 3.5, 4-star range. The concern I have is that like you still only get 12 cards in a deck. And Madam Web still allows like I get to just do my thing till you Red Guardian me or you Chord me or whatever. By Chord, I mean
Yeah.
Deafening Chord, which is we're going to talk about soon. So like, I do think web sling has like that limited side to it, but it's very cheap. Again, if you're playing Superior Spider-Man, you got that extra energy. You can just slide it into the rotation, right? Which I think is kind of cool. But at the end of the day, something I want to mention is that Move also often struggles with space, right? Like you occupy too much space on the board sometimes with Move, and this, it just vanishes. So the space is kind of left available for all your shenanigans you want to do. Now, you talked about juking. I'm going to reveal something. You guys want to know what deck I'm working on for this card? Okay? Because it's coming out next week, so I was trying to cook with it a little bit. I don't have the whole list ready, but I want to use Galactus with it. I want to put Symbiote Spider-Man in a location. I want to web sling the Symbiote Spider-Man and move him to one of 2 other locations and drop G-Man. So they can't predict where G-Man's going to be, because this will move the Symbiote. G-Man's going to come down and activate. Boom, get wrecked. And no one's going to see it coming, because isn't Bro playing a move deck? What is this?
I'm going to help you on that journey, because I had a similar thought with Galactus.
Let's go. Great minds think alike.
Turn 5, you just do this plus Shuri. And then slide out the Shuri and play the Galactus right there. So it's an alternate play line simultaneously.
Shuri has to go after this, though, or else you'd cook yourself.
Yeah, you know what I meant. Yeah, so
Yeah.
This... quiet. This, then Shuri, quiet. It's my first deck. But even if you had the Symbiote Spider-Man play, you could make that double proc happen. Do the Symbiote Spider-Man into those 2 into now, what is that? That's a 20 power Galactus on that turn.
I like this. I actually didn't think about Shuri, because obviously Shuri and Galactus, they don't really, they don't go hand in hand. Dude, that's a great idea. Thank you. Boom. Another card in that deck I'm still working on.
There you go.
Buddy, we're cooking. We're cooking here on the Snapchat.
I love
You're seeing
it.
a lot. We're just chefs now. We need chef
Yes.
hats. We had our tinfoil hats. Now we need the chef's hats, of course. But yeah, I think that web sling is going to be a good one, and it's thematically makes a lot of sense in the season. Here's another card. I have no idea who the hell Chameleon is, but here we are. Chameleon, a 3/3 on reveal. Copy the text of another card here you revealed this turn. Seems really good, but also like, man, like a lot of restrictions here. You got to play it here. It has to be played on the same turn. So this is going to cost 3, and then you have a limited amount of range you could play with. I'm feeling like this is a 2, maybe 3-star card. But the thing is that like I see some really good plays too. So like I kind of want to lean on the 3-star side. Like I want to cope with Surfer with this, because you can like this then Surfer. You know what I mean? You can do some really cool stuff with it. And like that's cool, because you don't like, if you wanted to double proc the Surfer, you used to have like Cope Summers. You play into that on turn 5, then you do like the Absorbing Man type thing, or obviously you have the Silver Surfer First Steps, which I mean you could also try to combo this Silver Surfer First Steps into Silver Surfer into Chameleon, and like you're cooking, right? It's kind of interesting, but like I don't know if that's enough for this card. So I've already talked too much. I always say like, oh, I don't want to just blow up all the synergies. I just went through a whole bunch of them.
You're good.
But yeah, I'm excited. I kind of actually really want to play Chameleon, but I'm not convinced it's actually great. I'm going to go 3 stars simply because like I'm very ho-hum about it still, and it's still it's actually not that far away. It's actually November 11th, to be honest with you. It's a Series 4 card, so yeah. What are your thoughts?
I think that this card, I think you're on the right track with the Surfer stuff, because the synergy that I have with this card is very similar. So I'm looking at Surfer, I'm looking at Silver Surfer First Steps, I'm looking at multiple procs, because then you've got Chameleon involved, and then maybe throw in Prodigy into that deck as well, because if you get the timing and the alternate builds right with this too, you could even do Surfer and then put the Prodigy behind it and have Chameleon copy something else like Brood, on turn 6, because you've got these delay mechanics, because you played something like a Supergiant, and then you're playing the Surfer behind it on turn 5. Like there's some crazy cheeky things in there. But the 2 big ones that jumped out to me outside of Cerebro 3, which I think this ends up being a must-have and replaces Mystique, because you're playing it for the exact same reason. You're playing it after the Cerebro on turn 6 more often than not. I like this in Victoria hand, because you can play this with the Hood on turn 4, destroy both and do all of those shenanigans, and it's just another free, easy card to create, and you can do it in a different lane with positive power, so you don't have to worry about the destructions. Similar to how you play the Frigga, like synergies, you kind of look at Chameleon the same way. But then also Machine Gun Gambit really likes this as an alternate play without needing an energy ramp, because a lot of Machine Gun Gambit decks are contingent on, can I get to 7 energy also on the final turn, whether it's magic or I have a ramp piece in place like Luna Snow. And then you're looking to do that plus Absorbing Man. This just made that so much easier to do. So now you don't even have to worry about the energy ramp. You can just play Chameleon instead and after Gambit, and then just get all of that craziness and just delete the entire board. So those are, I know that one's more of a fun, Exodia style build, but I think Victoria Hand actually sees Chameleon decks more than anything else.
Very interesting. You obviously came very prepared with Chameleon. We're gonna have to check out the guest gaming video on Chameleon. Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I was thinking, like, I'm not sure what it looks like yet because I haven't quite cooked enough with this card. I'm all in on the Surfer side, and I was trying to figure out other stuff too. I never like coming into a week for a new card with one deck. I like coming in that with at least like 3 or 4, because if something's not going right, I like being prepared. I'm definitely going to be playing this in Surfer 100%. But I was trying to think about, like, could Chameleon be really effective in something like Affliction? Because you could copy Hazmat if you need to. Yeah, it's pretty cool alongside Agent Venom, right? Because Agent Venom's going to give you a free card you can kind of slide into a combo with Chameleon in some way. So I was trying to figure out, like, how Affliction could use this card. Haven't quite figured that out yet. Check back on November 11th. But I'm just going to throw that out there. I think Affliction could have some interesting plays here.
Oh yeah.
Diamondback too, yeah, exactly. But you're in one location. Like, do you really need to double pump Diamondback? Like, it's like, it might be too much. I wonder if this card underperforms. Get rid of the "it's here" part, or is that just too broken?
That's probably too broken, considering it's just better Absorbing Man / Mystique / everything at that point. Because remember, this isn't copy beyond reveal. No, but it's like it's copy the text. So this is taking the advantage of Prodigy. Copy the text of the card in front of it, and it needs to have some kind of restriction if you're taking a full-on ability and then replicating it in that moment. If you have I was trying to think of some weird kind of cheeky plays with, thinking about Lemuria and how that works in the game with the delayed release, and it's this turn, and I was like, oh, maybe there's something here with Invisible Woman. But then I remembered that's end of game. That's not end of turn, so it's not going to do the effect the way that you would want it to. But there's got to be something in that vein that really makes Chameleon broken. But I think right now, this is just straight up a Surfer card of all Surfer cards.
Yeah. Okay. Another reason they're going to want to cook. Man, listen, there's a lot of cooking happening this season. I'm excited for it. Now, a card that's not going to need much cooking, but honestly, I think it's just fantastic. Deafening Chord is good, man. This is just a prototypical solid card. I'm coming at 4.5. Like, I actually think, like, this is a very good card. We got a lot of bangers, honestly. It's coming out on November 20th into Series 4. It's just an incredibly good skill. It's Red Guardian without the space being occupied. It's great. I should actually read what it is. It's a 1-cost skill that reads, on reveal, afflict the enemy character here that costs 3 or less with -1 power and remove its text. So it's literally cheap Red Guardian with no body, but it won't hit Dracula's, right? It has a much more narrow range, but still, it's got a lot of good things to hit. Bullseyes, Morbius, triple M's like we just talked about before. Specifically, though, I know I'm stealing some thunder here. We talked one before. Nicolas Cage, and by Nicolas Cage, I mean Luke Cage, gets cooked by a Deafening Chord. So that might be valuable for all the gamers out there that want to be bouncing Spider-Punks around.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no, because I think it also depends on if you're aiming to hit the Luke Cage. Because if you can remove the text and have it hit the Luke Cage, then, I mean, that's just a win-win-win scenario. But I think when you're deck building with this card, you have to ask yourself, similar to what we were talking about with the Superior Spider-Man, there are cases for certain cards. This card has a very similar effect to Red Guardian, and whenever you think Red Guardian, you will also think Cosmic Ghost Rider. So what is the purpose of the 1-cost skill? What's the benefit of it versus a 3/2 Red Guardian versus a 5/7 Cosmic Ghost Rider? Because they're all removing text. And I also think that in the future, this kind of opens up the door to some kind of card that re-enables text, but that's a conversation for a different cocktail. I think that this card is meant to be a board, more than anything else, a board clearer. It's meant to keep that space open, and your downside to it is that it's taking a slot in the 12 slots that you get from the deck. So you have to capitalize on it with other mechanisms, whether it's the hordes, whether it's the werewolf by night, whether it's this card has to lean into those synergies to get more value out of it. Otherwise, the other bodies make a lot more sense to play more often than not because of the flexibility of what those cards do, and they hit a wider range of cards. Like you talked about the Dracula synergy. If discard is too apparent, you're going to want to play a Red Guardian over this more often than not. But when you're in a season of moving and needing a bunch of board space regularly, this card has a lot more value to it. So I think it is a great card. I think it's at least a 4-star card, probably 4.5, but it's always tough to tell because it's a skill. And that's the hardest sell for me as to why I think it's stuck at 4, is because it's taking that slot out of your deck.
Yeah, of course. And like we mentioned it before and you just mentioned it now, like, but if you're playing this in Move needs to keep space at a premium, right? Like you don't want to occupy a deck slot and an actual physical slot on the board with a Red Guardian. Like this is kind of cool for that. I think this could be potentially very good in the Werewolf by Night shells we were talking about before, right? This is another really good piece to have something moving on reveal as well. Now, when you try to answer the question, like, well, when do you play this versus, Cosmic Ghost Rider and stuff like that? That's a difficult question to answer. However, when you're playing Cosmic Ghost Rider, you're committing to a turn. This here could be snuck in, right? We talked about Superior Spider-Man the entire time. That 1 extra energy. You got the Miles Morales down seemingly for free. You're going into turn 6, you have 7 energy. You do this, then you Heimdall, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you did way more than you expected. Oh, you turned off their bullseye and then Heimdalled. You know what I mean? Like there's chances to just slide this in where they don't expect it. Whereas like Red Guardian is a commitment on turn 3 or 4. Cosmic Ghost Rider is a commitment on 5 or 6. This could just be snuck in. And that's kind of where I think it's powerful.
I think I'm going to throw a question to you then, because we talk about Deafening Chord specifically. Earlier we talked about Web Sling, and we also talked about Prowler. Does that mean with the release of these 5 extra skills that'll be accessible to any player at any given point, we can finally consider Nicholas Scratch as a regular possibility again?
Dude, how much have you drank today? That's crazy. The actual answer is
well, this
maybe.
was fun. Thanks, man.
That honestly, like, do you make a deck with like Agamotto, Nicholas Scratch, and just cope right up, or what? Like, I could see it potentially maybe working. I mean, you're not crazy. Merlin in there, like,
because there's a
Scratch.
lot of 1-cost skills, and that's one of the things that card in particular wants is 1-cost skills. Because if you play Scratch in a Merlin deck, okay, sure, that's nice, but you're looking at a lot trying to benefit as much power as possible. So just this plus Nicholas Scratch alone might have something in and of itself, because it's 2 power you're committing, but you're also getting 5+ out of the energy. So that's a good energy to power ratio.
Nicholas Scratch is the green power for Superior Spider-Man. We're cooking. I don't know.
I like the way you think.
But if you've done it, if you've made the Nicholas Scratch the meta card for November 2025, kudos to you, sir. Now, what we got to do here before we both black out from talking too long in front of lights that honestly are surprisingly hot today. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I think my wife's running the heat and like my lights are getting hot and I'm just like wearing a nice woolly shirt. And I mean, this whole conversation has been spicy. It makes sense.
This is true. This is very true.
We have a single mailbag statement that I just wanted to read to you because we did have the Grand Arena, which was awesome. Grand Arena with lots of its new pre-made decks, which I'm a huge fan of. Still think that pre-made versus pre-made matchmaking would be cool, even if maybe it gets a little dull at the end of it. But I do think pre-made versus pre-made is kind of cool, which is kind of what I've been experiencing, to be honest with you. But there's been questions about like Hulkling. Why is Hulkling being discounted with the Hulk deck, which is by far, I think, the best one? And Andrew Poirier did state, Hulkling is a Kree-Skrull mix, son of Captain Marvel and Skrull Princess Enel. So not even remotely a Hulk. Scar is the son of Hulk and Kyera, and definitely a Hulk. This makes perfect sense, and also I feel like, we got to get the lore right. If we're going to do the lore right, we got to do it right, damn it. Don't be discounting Hulkling, but I will say, man, Hulkling's actually been low-key super fun in that mode. Like, I'm not a Hulkling believer, but I'm actually starting to come around to it. And that's the beautiful thing about the mode, too. It's like, let's say you've never played Hulkling because you're like, I don't want to spend $6K on that. And you play, like, these pre-made decks that give you all the cards. And you're like, bruh, Hulkling actually like was a G-Man or was a, you go out, you spend your tokens. I think it's so valuable. I think they need to bring back Grand Arena, and thank you to whoever at Second Dinner chose to make pre-made accessible decks. You're the real MVP.
I'm gonna continue the train of maybe I had too much before recording the podcast here, but next time Grand Arena comes on down, do not sleep on Zombie Galacti in that game mode. It was stupid fun, and the only way I had fun with that card because you had all that extra energy. Just throwing it out there. Not when you're trying to climb, not when you're trying to be serious, when you're trying to really have fun in Grand Arena. Zombie Galacti is a fun card. It's sad that it was really, really bad, but in that game mode, it was stupid fun.
Actually, on that note, like that game mode, one of the things I like most about, first of all, the aesthetic, I think they really nailed. I think that the champion, everything about that mode, I think was awesome. I think they really cooked. And I suspect that feels like definitely Glenn cooked on that. That feels like Glenn put his mind to work on creating that mode. It definitely shows. What I will say is I think the major factor in that game mode is the extra energy. That one extra natural energy, it makes the game feel totally different. It really does. It actually kind of advances the speed of the game to some degree. Now, I'm not a huge fan of like one drops feeling borderline irrelevant in it. I don't want to say irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, you know, one drop, what do you do? But like it kind of advances that end of it. What you can do on turn 6, it's just way, way different. And so, yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I love Grand Arena. Just like I loved this podcast and I love guest gaming. And you know what? I think you're going to love guest gaming too. So what I'm going to do is in the pinned comment, in the description, and everywhere I possibly can, I'm going to leave the socials, the channels, the streams, everything where you can find It's Guest Gaming. This guy, I'm not just saying it because he's here. I'll say it to anyone that asks me. One of the hardest working dudes in Marvel Snap. What you see, what you don't see, this guy is an absolute champion. He's doing amazing things for Marvel Snap and this community, whether it's the Golden Gauntlet, speaking up for your best interest in the creator Discord. This guy's got your back. All the links are down in the description. Guest, it was wonderful having you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words. Thanks for, making this happen. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here. You guys don't realize how much conversation Alex has behind the scenes in the Marvel Snap scene and trying to defend you all just as much and speak up for the community. You hear it on the streams, you hear it in the other end, but I can tell you from behind the scenes just as much so, what you see is what you get with that man. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be here to chat with you today about all this.
Thank you so much, dude. That means a lot to me. And guys, you know where you're going to be on Saturday. You're going to be watching the Golden Gauntlet. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and we'll see you on that next one.